Today we're going to talk about the 5 biggest downsides with going with the Supernote or any kind of e-ink device. And are those downsides deal breakers, or is it still worth it to try one of these out? Let's talk about it. Alright, so the first problem I know a lot of people have with an e-ink device is the screen refresh rate. Now, this to me is not a deal breaker, and I'm going to explain and kind of show some use cases here, so hopefully you can understand that as well. So the way an e-ink display actually works is they actually have small black particles of what looks like ink. It's not actually ink, but that's what's moved around the screen. It's not LED lights that are projecting this. It's actually small particles moving around. And that means they're not always as fast as just lights turning on and off, because, you know, the speed of light is hard to match. So it makes the refreshing not as quick. It's kind of got this lag to it. And that also means sometimes you get an outline of the previous page around it. The Supernote's pretty good about cleaning that up, but some of them are worse than others. And then you can refresh the screen by making it go all black and then come back. And that usually cleans up the white areas a little bit more. So there is just some problems you're going to have to deal with this kind of screen. And you also want to understand what they are. Basically what you need to know is if you want this super snappy experience and super high refresh rates, get some kind of LED or LCD tablet or OLED tablet like this iPad Pro that has 120 hertz refresh rate. This is going to be way better at doing all those kinds of things than anything else, and it's going to be really nice for just navigating and moving around the UI because it's made for that. Then just leaving this up here for a second, this shows the next problem a lot of people have with e-ink screens, specifically something like the Supernote and the Remarkable, is where they have no colors. It is all in grayscale, it's monochromatic, and that's because color is still something that the e-ink world is working on integrating well. There's the Kaleido technology, which in my opinion is not a good enough solution. It basically requires having some kind of front lights to make the screen look good at all, otherwise it really grays everything out, and it just looks worse than just having anything monochrome. But some people need color for their workflow. Like if you're doing something art-wise that needs color to reference, well, you're not going to get that on the Supernote or really any e-ink display, especially if you're trying to make really accurate colors. Even the e-ink that has color, it's going to be very limited in the color options it gives you, so you're going to want to go again with some kind of LED, LCD, OLED tablet like an iPad. I do just want to point out that as for me, I haven't found a problem with this being monochromatic, as I just mostly use this for writing and journaling and just daily notes. I'm not really doing anything artsy on here, and you can still do that in grayscale, but I don't really find that lacking too much, where the things I do in the iPad requires color way more than what the Supernote requires. And I actually really like how they don't try to shove in a front light that adds more of a gap in the screen. They don't try to use the kind of Kaleido technology to add the colors in. They just accept the fact that this is monochromatic and they really dive into that and they let that be its thing. And I think it works for the Supernote for what it's doing here, and I really do like that. Another problem people might see with the Supernote is because of this screen technology and how they have a little bit of their own operating system, the software might feel limited. And that is true, and that's also not true. So, in my opinion, the biggest thing that limits e-ink software is their hardware. And let me explain. With the iPad here, it's really optimized to use many different apps and have many different use cases. Like you can hook this up to a Magic Keyboard and have more of a laptop replacement. You can use Shaper 3D and get some serious 3D modeling work done. You can use Freeform and plan out a business strategy or design a new game using that as your infinite canvas. You can get several different AI apps. You can use Microsoft 360 so you can have all your office work done here. This is really optimized as an everything tablet, where this is even says on their website, it's for those who write. And Supernote will say that if you want a tablet that does everything, go with an iPad. That's actually on their website. They recommend that. Because this is not trying to replace the iPad, it's trying to replace a notebook. Now, if you do go with something like the Books devices, they are much less limited as far as software goes. They run full Android. But to me, that doesn't really change anything, because you can now sideload on the Supernote, but I'm not going to install 5 different web browsers and start watching YouTube on my Supernote. It doesn't make any sense to me. This is focused for writing, and that's what I'm going to use it for. If I want to watch YouTube, I'm going to use color display that has proper refresh rate. Because trust me, when I had the Books tablets, I tried watching a YouTube video on it, and even with their higher refresh rate, because they do a pretty good job of refreshing even faster than Supernote does, it still doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. The Books devices are still not regular tablets. They're not LCD screens. They're not going to look good when playing fast content like that. If you saw my comparison between the iPad Pro and the Supernote tablet, you would have seen that the specs on the Supernote are really not that good compared to something like an iPad. And that's a little shocking to some people, because this is getting close to like iPad mini price. And it's more expensive than a lot of regular Android tablets for sure. So why is it priced so high with such low specs? Like, it's got 4 gigs of RAM, it's got barely a quad-core processor, and only 32 gigs of memory. So are those limited specs a big deal breaker here? Again, I don't really think so, as I see these specs as like just a necessity. You need to have some kind of processing power on a device just to do this limited thing. But again, this is replacing a notebook, not replacing a laptop, not replacing an iPad. It's not trying to do any of those things. It's just trying to be a notebook. And I think that's important to note. And that really leads me into my final point here, the high price tag. Yes, it's expensive for what you get internally, but it's the experience that you're really paying for. You're paying for this notebook replacement that has a long battery life and that just has a fantastic writing experience and feel. The feel is really what you are paying for. And that's something I really stand by. It's also expensive because the manufacturers for e-ink screens are not mass producing it to anywhere near the scale of LCD, OLED kind of screens, because they're not anywhere near as popular. So just getting a more niche product is going to come with a higher price tag, and that's not the company's fault. It's kind of also why they have to keep the specs down a little bit, and that's just the nature of using e-ink screens. They're just going to have a higher price tag right now, but hey, the more popular they become, the more we show interest in them, the lower their prices will probably start becoming. And that's why bigger companies like Amazon with their Kindles can make them a lot cheaper, because they have more connections and they can get things produced at more quantities and make more deals with different companies. So that's really the reasoning for this high price. And to me, I find it worth it. I find the experience and the writing feel to be worth paying this little bit of a premium. Alright, so in conclusion, is this worth it? Is it worth going through all this trouble and getting an e-ink device, even with this high price tag, the slow refresh rate, the not so great tech specs, the poor color support, and the sometimes somewhat limited software? Yes, I think it's absolutely worth it. I still love my iPad Pro. I use my iPad Pro for iPad Pro things. But I also love the Supernote, and I use the Supernote for Supernote things. And to me, the worlds don't collide that often. There are some things I could do on one or the other, and that's true. And typically, in those cases, I pick the Supernote. If I can do it the Supernote well, I usually choose the Supernote to do it on, because I like the writing feel even better than an iPad, and I really like just how long the battery lasts for me, and I just really treat it like a notebook, and almost like the scratch paper that I need every now and then. And that really works for me. So let me know down in the comments, are any of these downsides deal breakers for you? Or do you think you can get over all those and still go with an e-ink device? I really want to know that in the comments below. And if you're interested in the Supernote and you're going to get one for yourself, let me know that. And if there's anything else you're wondering about the Supernote, something you would like me to test, just let me know down in the comments below as well, and I might even make a full video on that. All the gear I use in this video is going to be linked below, so if you'd like to get something similar for yourself, feel free to check that out, and using those links does support the channel, so I do appreciate that. If you want to see some of the comparisons I've made with the Supernote A6X2, those are going to be linked below as well as my full e-ink playlist. And if you want to see more on an iPad Pro, well, I'm going to be getting the new iPad Pros in, and I'm going to be doing all sorts of comparisons and testings with those as well. And I'll even be comparing it with the Supernote and potentially with the Remarkable as well. So if you're still wondering which one of these tablets on the market right now is going to be the best for digital note taking, I'm going to be doing some more comparisons there. Thank you for watching.